Right in the middle of a make-or-break sluicing run, one of his most critical wash plants suddenly shut down without any warning. A total catastrophic failure that his mechanics still can't fully diagnose. The shaker deck is completely dead. The bearings are ruined. And every single hour that machine sits idle, Parker is losing gold he will never recover. Unless you guys have work for him, I'm going to get everybody out of here. Is that cool with you? Yeah, that's awesome. They're coming to work tonight. I told him they were working tonight. Is that all right? Yep. Yep. But the breakdown is only the opening act. Parker has already burned through $4.5 million this spring. The guy who owes him $130,000 has already spent every cent of it. His Sulfur Creek water license is racing toward expiration. Man, I didn't think it would be this much work keeping 3 wash plants going. Yeah, Taylor's been a busy man this week. It has. Yeah, we're putting a lot of miles on the trucks this year. Even my truck, with these 3 plants, is self-sped out. And he's now trying to stretch a skeleton crew across 4 wash plants when running 3 was already complete chaos. Something has to give. The Sulfur Creek gamble 3 weeks into what is shaping up to be his most ambitious season ever. Parker Schnabel is balancing on a knife's edge. His Dominion Creek claims have already banked more than $2 million in gold, a pace that would leave most miners thrilled. But that early success has done something dangerous. It's made him bold, and in the Klondike, bold moves have a habit of turning into very expensive regrets. Instead of playing it safe and doubling down on the proven ground at Dominion, Parker placed a massive wager on Sulfur Creek, legendary Klondike ground that has been mined since 1898 and carries a lifetime payout estimate of $1.20 billion. The more gold that comes out of there, the more I'm like, oh, like this is the ground and not just we happen to start in a really good spot, right? It's so nice. Like at first it was just relief, but now I'm like actually spurn, you get excited. Stories of gold nuggets lying exposed right on the creek bed have pulled prospectors to Sulfur Creek for over a century. But it's also notoriously tricky, deeply unpredictable ground. Every hour his crews spend working sulfur is an hour they're not spending on guaranteed pay dirt at Dominion. Sulfur is a really tricky piece of ground, Parker said. Are we doing all of this on sulfur at the cost of getting Dominion done? That's the question that haunts me. And here's the ticking time bomb buried under the entire sulfur operation. The water license required to mine that ground is about to expire. Without that license, Parker cannot run water through his sluice boxes, which means he cannot wash gold, which means he cannot mine. That if he cannot extract enough gold before that deadline hits, everything he's invested in sulfur, every dollar, every machine hour, every ounce of crew energy, goes up in smoke. He's watched other miners like Rick Ness get trapped in exactly this kind of licensing nightmare, desperately waiting and hoping for permits that may never arrive. I know a lot of people up here are surprised, but they didn't get rid of me that easy. So, no, you're a survivor. I've said that to everybody. I have, no matter what. I've said that the guy survives. Parker swore he would never end up in that position. And yet here he is, racing a clock he cannot slow down. To beat the deadline, Parker ordered oversized excavator buckets, 6 3/4 yards, absolutely massive for the size of machine he's running. When the first one arrived, his operators couldn't believe the scale. That's insane, one crew member said. Look at how wide it is compared to the 480. The bigger the bucket, the faster the dirt moves, and Parker needs every advantage he can get. He's also leaning heavily on Tyson, one of his key operators, giving him significantly more responsibility this season. Tyson has taken it seriously, almost personally, which is exactly what Parker needs right now. In a season this tight, Parker wants as few people doing as much work as possible. Parker gave his crew 1 week to get sulfur sluicing. Not 2 weeks. Not soon. 1 week. He's throwing brand new equipment at the problem, hoping shiny new machinery can outrun the calendar, but new equipment in the Klondike doesn't mean smooth sailing. It means new problems nobody has encountered before, and with 3 or 4 days needed just to get a wash plant operational at Sulfur, Parker's margin for error is basically 0.1 mechanical hiccup, 1 parts delay, 1 bad day of weather, and the whole Sulfur timeline collapses. With a $4.5 million hole in just the first few weeks of spring, Parker Schnabel has burned through $4.5 million. Equipment purchases, crew wages, fuel, maintenance, lease payments, the expenses are relentless, and they don't care whether the gold is flowing or not. It's been an outrageously expensive spring, but it's an understatement. We've already spent more this year than we've ever spent in a season. We haven't even started. The money goes out every single day regardless. So when Parker drove over to collect $130,000 for a rock truck, a bucket, and a ripper he sold to another operation the previous season, he expected a check. The deal was straightforward: end of season, you pay, except it's now been 6 months and Parker still hasn't seen a dime. He finally sent an invoice a month ago. Still nothing. When Parker confronted Kevin about the overdue payment, the exchange was tense and uncomfortable, the kind of conversation where both people know exactly where it's headed, but neither wants to get there first, like, "What was the plan in January if I sent you an invoice?" Parker asked, jaw tight. "To pay it then," Kevin replied. "So how come you didn't pay it last month when I sent it?" "Because I figured you made us wait so long. You probably weren't hurting for the money." Parker paused, let that answer hang in the air for a second. Took a breath. "I made you wait so long." "Yeah. Okay, that's good. Perfect." But it wasn't perfect. Not even close. Parker pushed for a Thursday payment. Kevin said he'd need to check with Faith, so they went to find her. She wasn't in the office. She wasn't in the kitchen. Kevin thought she might be in the trailer. She was, and she wasn't doing well. When Kevin pulled her aside and explained the situation, laying out that Parker was there for the truck, the bucket, and the ripper, the truth came out fast and ugly. "The money that I've put aside for him, we've already spent it," Faith admitted. "Hopefully this week we can sluice enough that we can pay him back. I don't really give a. I just want to get paid so I can pay our bills because I have managed to spend like $4.5 million so far in this spring and now I'm tracking down 130 grand. It's like the equivalent of looking through the seat cushions." Parker isn't chasing this $130,000 because he's greedy. He's chasing it because he's hemorrhaging cash and the bills don't stop. "I don't really care about the excuses," Parker said after leaving. "I just want to get paid so I can pay our bills because I have managed to spend like $4.5 million so far this spring and now I'm tracking down 130 grand dollars. It's like the equivalent of looking through the seat cushions. $130,000, and in Parker's current financial position, it feels like couch change. That tells you everything about how deep the hole really is, gold in the mud and a critical decision. But amid all the financial chaos, there are moments that remind Parker exactly why he does this. While inspecting one of his Dominion Creek cuts, Parker decided to pan some dirt from an upper section nobody had tested yet. His crew had been hauling material out of the pit as fast as possible, trying to get it to the wash plant without stopping to check what they were sitting on. Nobody had panned the upper section. Parker grabbed a pan just out of curiosity. What he pulled out of that dirt stopped him cold. "Holy smokes," Parker whispered, staring into the pan. "That's a hell of a pan. Must be 100 pieces of gold in there." 100 pieces? From a section they almost walked right past without a second thought. The gold was right there in the mud, scattered through the dirt like someone had planted it, and now Parker faced another impossible decision. His crew had a mountain of ground to process at other sites. They already had a massive sluicing schedule locked in for the season, but walking away from visible gold goes against everything in a miner's DNA. There's gold there, and that's what we're here for, Parker said, making the call. They'd stay longer and get that last bit of pay, but that meant pulling crew from another site to make it work, which meant weakening his operation somewhere else to strengthen this one. Parker knew the truth before anyone said it out loud. There's a lot of sluicing to do this season, and somehow it always turns into a bigger project than anyone expected. It always turns into a lot bigger project than we think, doesn't it? His foreman said, and that's exactly what Parker is worried about. Every commitment he makes to one site is time stolen from another. And time is the one resource he's running out of faster than money. 4 plants, 1 crew. For the first time in his entire career, Parker wants to run 4 wash plants simultaneously. To bring in 10,000 ounces this season, he needs all of them firing. At Indian River, Roxanne is grinding through Ken Stewart's lease ground. The grade isn't the greatest, and Parker's paying royalties on every ounce, but it's a massive block of ground he cannot afford to lose, particularly when the price of gold is running this high. Leasing ground in the Klondike is getting harder every year. And if Parker lets this claim go, someone else will snatch it up. 10 miles north at Dominion, wash plant Bob is sluicing the bridge cut. We just need to keep gold coming in. So we're going to pull strips around the outside edge of the bridge cut, and hopefully it has a lot of gold in it. 2 miles away, Sulfur is finishing off the first 11 acres of the Golden Mile. Now Parker wants Tyson to move Sulfur 800 feet to a new pad to sluice the next 15-acre section, and on top of all that, Parker wants to resurrect his old plant, Big Red, and set it up right next to Sulfur to double his Golden Mile firepower. 4 plants, 1 crew. And a boss who knows this is either going to be legendary or catastrophic. His site supervisor, Mitch, saw the chaos coming from a mile away. Parker had already told the mechanics to start working on Big Red. He'd already mapped out exactly where to set it up. He'd already talked to the mechanics and they were starting to work on her, but Mitch, the guy actually running between sites all day trying to keep everything from falling apart, knew exactly what 4 plants meant for a crew this size. Running 3 plants on Dominion is going to be a stretch, Mitch told Parker. I'm running like a chicken with my head cut off between the 2 right now. With 3 it's already, I know, Parker said. We're taking chaos to a new level. You're going to have gray hair by the end of it, Mitch warned, but Parker wanted Big Red operational by the end of the week. The mechanics took one look at the old plant, and their faces said everything. The screen deck, the sluice runs, and the pre-wash all needed major work. That's essentially the entire guts of a wash plant. Parker was asking them to rebuild a machine from the inside out, while simultaneously keeping 3 other plants running. The mechanics were not going to be happy, but Parker doesn't run his operation based on what makes people happy. He runs it based on what gets gold out of the ground. Meanwhile, the human side of the operation was generating its own chaos. One of Parker's crew members, India, sent a one-word text to her supervisor, help. No context. No explanation. Just, help, with an exclamation mark. That he dropped everything and raced to the site, panicking. When he got there, he found India standing on top of a pile of material, casually shoveling. You can't do that, he told her, still catching his breath. That is not cool. You have to say the wash plant's down, or a loader's got a flat tire, or there's a bear in the cut, because I could not get there fast enough. India shrugged. What did you want me to do? I was shoveling. Text like, help. Help. I'm shoveling. With 4 plants stretching a skeleton crew to the absolute breaking point, every miscommunication, every wasted trip, every false alarm is gold left sitting in the ground. The nightmare breakdown. And then it happened. the nightmare Parker has been dreading all season. Right in the middle of a critical sluicing run, the shaker deck on one of his active wash plants just stopped. Dead. No warning. No gradual slowdown. 1 second, the thunderous rattle of rocks being processed, gravel hammering steel, engine screaming, water roaring through the sluice runs. The next second, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't belong on an active mine site. This is where the pins broke and he caught it in a decent time before it was completely falling off. But either way, we got to fix the pin. Just the eerie sound of water dripping through a machine that should have been shaking the earth. Crew members froze mid-task. Operators looked at each other across the cut. Nobody moved, because on a gold mine, sudden silence means something just went very, very wrong. Brennan, Parker's crew lead, made the call immediately. "Hey man, the shaker deck just stopped going. You've got to be joking me." They checked everything. Generators on. Breakers on. Hit the switch. Nothing happens. The plant was dead, and every minute it sat idle was gold. They weren't recovering from ground with a ticking deadline attached to it. "I do not want to see that plant down," Parker said through gritted teeth. "We have way too much ground to get through here. They need to be down here making pay." Father and son mechanics Bill Horton and Justin Dion were called in to investigate. What they found was troubling. The overload protection system was shutting the plant down, but nobody could figure out why. So they did what mechanics do when a machine won't talk. They started at the beginning, testing every wire, pulling connections apart, checking each one, putting them back together, hunting methodically for the source of the overload on each leg. It was tedious, painstaking work while the clock burned and the gold sat unwashed in the ground. After hours of troubleshooting, pulling apart wiring and reassembling connections, they managed to get it running again, but the readings were bad. The amperage driving the shaker motor was sitting at 42 to 43 amps when it should have been at 35. The motor was pulling way too hard, straining against something nobody could pinpoint. Something inside that machine was fighting itself, and it was only a matter of time before it lost. "Everything is running," Brennan said cautiously. "Pretty happy right now. I'm just hoping this happiness can last all day." It didn't. The plant failed again. This time it wasn't coming back with a quick fix. "Mark, you ready?" "Oh yeah. You've got to be kidding me. This always happens. Come on. Now we're getting somewhere." When they dug deeper into the guts of the machine, they discovered water pouring out of the bearing housing. The seal was completely compromised. When they cracked it open, the mechanic went quiet for a long moment, just staring at the extent of the damage. A hole had worn clean through the housing. Dirt had been grinding inside the bearing for who knows how long, silently chewing through the metal from the inside out like a slow poison. Nobody thought to test for. By the time anyone noticed, the damage was total and irreversible. "Those bearings will be toast," the mechanic said flatly, shaking his head at the wreckage. Parker stared at the shredded bearing and did the math in his head. Days of downtime, minimum. Hundreds of ounces of gold they will never recover. Replacement parts that have to be sourced and shipped to one of the most remote mining operations in the Yukon, where nothing arrives fast and everything costs double, and all of it happening while his Sulfur Creek water license ticks closer to expiration, while $4.5 million in spring spending sits heavy on his books, and while the one person who owes him $130 grand has already blown through the cash. Every single problem Parker has been outrunning all season just caught up to him, in a single broken bearing. The gold weighed despite everything, despite the breakdowns and the financial pressure and the impossible logistics of running 4 sites with a crew that was already stretched thin. The gold still has to be weighed, and the numbers told a split story that left Parker somewhere between cautiously optimistic and deeply concerned. Roxanne came in strong at 150.44 ounces. An improvement over the previous week and a sign that Ken Stewart's ground is finally starting to produce the way Parker needs it to. Sulfur and Big Red combined for 251.55 ounces, up from 232 the week before. The Dominion Creek operations were trending in the right direction. The crew was happy with those numbers, but then came Wash Plant Bob and the numbers were ugly. 170 ounces a week was the average this week. 80.7 for a pit they stripped over 40 feet of overburden to reach, a pit that was supposed to be sitting on rich pay. The drop was devastating. Bob's been a bit depressing to be honest, Parker admitted. I don't know if you're really getting into that good pay yet or not. There's a lot of low-grade pay. Hopefully it'll come back up somewhere. Weekly total, 505.44 ounces, up from 428 the previous week. Season total, 5,855.9 ounces. The target, 10,000, over 700 ounces in 1 week? That's nuts. That's a however result. That's a really good week. We're on track. We're really on track. This just might work. That's pretty cool. We're going forward, Parker said. Be nice if we went forward a little faster, but we're getting there. We just have to keep plugging at her. It's not one disaster that's threatening Parker Schnabel's season. It's a wash plant that keeps dying, a debtor who already spent his money, an overstretched crew running 4 sites when 3 was already madness, a water license counting down to 0 at Sulfur Creek, and a bridge cut that's producing half of what it should. Any one of those problems on its own is manageable. All of them converging at once is the kind of nightmare breakdown that could cost him millions. The gold is in the ground. Parker knows it. He's seen it with his own eyes, 100 pieces glittering in a single pan, but can he get to it before the machines, the money, and the clock run out? With Wash Plant Bob underperforming, a critical plant sitting dead with shredded bearings, and his Sulfur Creek window shrinking by the day, the next few weeks will determine whether this becomes Parker Schnabel's greatest season, or his most expensive disaster. If you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. This season is far from over, and the worst might still be coming. Music fades.